Because it's easy to see what's on social media and like that's way sexier. Like that guy has
Oh, yeah.
250,000 followers. He must know what he's doing. Look how good it looks. Look how jacked he is. Look how fast he is. We should do what that guy says. But that guy's marketing. That guy's doing sales. He's not doing real life. The people you have with you in your organization, it's not as sexy. It's not as polished because they're dealing with real life. But they know your culture. They know your limitations. They know your current status. They know what equipment you have. They know what the weather is like. They know what your leaders will approve. They know what's on the calendar next month. Like that was the goal with that conversation.
Team, welcome back to another week of, well, it's not the Mops and Most podcast.
No, it's
this
not.
week it's just you and you're a guest somewhere else. I'm like the
Yeah.
odd man out. Hey guys, this week you're not going to hear me at all.
Sorry, Drew. You
It's
sad?
okay. No, get a week off.
There you go. We have a little bit of a crossover episode for you guys here. It came out on the Captains and Coaches podcast probably at this point at least a couple weeks ago. So if you already follow it, you already heard it. Go ahead and skip this one. That's fine. But we're going to air it here so that folks who are familiar with the Mops and Mo's podcast might find out that this other one is also interesting to them. It's a little more sport coaching focused. It's not as military usually, but this particular episode is. I ran into Tex McQuilkin. I'd known his name for a little bit. I don't know if we bumped into each other in other places. We've probably been at a couple of the same conferences. But where I got to know him was at the first Armored Division H2F summit at Fort Bliss. I gave a presentation. He really resonated with some of the comments about Nazareth Syndrome. He's experienced that in his own life. You'll hear about that in the podcast. But I can also say, I think it was on day 2, might have been afternoon of day 1. He gave a hell of a hands-on coaching development session. So if organizations are looking for like professional development for coaches, he's got some really cool stuff. So what you're going to hear for the rest of this after we wrap this interview is an episode of the Captains and Coaches podcast where I was the guest. And just for some quick context, at Captains and Coaches, they believe leadership isn't just taught, it's built through action, resilience, and teamwork. Their mission is to empower athletes, captains, and coaches, as one would expect, to excel not just in sports, but in life. They don't just focus on physical training. They deliver a comprehensive approach to developing confidence, leadership, and mental toughness. Whether you're guiding a team, leading on the field, or supporting from the sidelines, their tailored programs are designed to meet your unique needs and drive long-lasting results. It is hosted by, of course, Tex McQuilkin, who brings over 15 years of transformative experience as the founder and leadership strategist for Captains and Coaches. His unique methodology bridges the gap between physical excellence and leadership mastery, empowering athletes to become exceptional performers and influential leaders. From youth athletes to elite collegiate competitors and special operations forces, Tex has guided individuals and teams to breakthrough achievements through his signature blend of disciplines training and empathetic mentorship. He's a former 4-year starter and 3-year team captain for Marymount University men's lacrosse. You will hear some comments in this episode as well about the role sport plays in leadership development across many sectors. So he intimately understands the challenges and opportunities that shape athletic leadership. I also, in a slight tangent, will say, based on his Instagram page, I'm pretty sure like today or yesterday, he was at the Naval Academy talking to some squids. So it's a good thing we recorded before that, or I might have had to be a little mad. But anyway, it was a good chat.
Tex McQuilkin. It's a hell of a name.
It is a hell of a name. I don't think Tex is his actual first name. Let me see if I can find.
I mean, I kind of assumed that.
Yeah.
If it is, all the more power to him.
I'm checking.
Tex McQuilkin. Well, hey, while you're checking that, I'm proud of you for getting out there on your own.
This was also it's Chris McQuilkin. He goes by Tex.
That checks out.
It was a cool one because this was an in-person podcast. We linked up again at the NSCA Tactical Annual Training, aka TSAC, and we sat down. I don't know if he like asked permission or just occupied by force, but he sees this like really nice little fireplace library room at the hotel. It was classy as hell, man. It was good. So like, if you mostly just listen to our podcast, but like that video is right there on Spotify and you can go click over there and see it for a little bit. Classy venue. I was impressed.
We need more fireplaces. Well, cool. Guys, enjoy listening to Alex talk, and see you next week.
I'll use this opportunity to get on a soapbox real quick. I hear the term buy-in all the time. Buy-in isn't happening unless money is changing hands, right? Buy-in means payment, right? So people constantly look for buy-in from the soldiers. Soldiers are not the ones who are putting money into the program. You do need to look for buy-in from the people who write the checks that make the program happen.
Welcome to the Captains and Coaches podcast. We explore the art and science of leadership through the lens of athletics and beyond. I'm your host, Tex McQuilkin, and today I come to you live from the NSCA Tactical Conference in San Antonio for a fireside chat with Alex Morrow, creator of the Mops and Mo's podcast. That's measures of performance and measures of effectiveness. Alex is a West Point grad who spent 8 years on active duty before landing at the Army Physical Fitness School, where he realized the military's approach to fitness needed a serious overhaul. He continues serving as an intelligence officer in the Army Reserve while working to modernize how the force thinks about human performance. We connected at the Fort Bliss H2F Summit in July, where Alex presented and led a panel on keeping it real and soldier performance. And today we're diving into the ACFT, military fitness culture, and why real experts are often overlooked. With that, we'll hand it off to Alex to help us raise the game. Ready, and great.
We're live action. Alex Morrow. We're at the Tactical Strength and Conditioning Conference for the NSCA, and we connected at Fort Bliss at H2F Summit. And then you presented on a topic that these lights went off for me. I didn't realize this was a topic, but the Nazareth
Syndrome.
I couldn't remember if it was like a paradox or something, but syndrome.
Yeah.
So I've got a questions based off that, and I want to lead off with that.
Yeah.
And then we're going to deep dive ACFT.
Okay,
and
let's do it.
I'm going to wind you up and then just set you free.
Deal. So I actually learned the term Nazareth Syndrome at a TSAC, Tactical Annual Training, I think 3-4 years ago, maybe at this point. I had just finished a presentation on a totally different topic. Coach in the audience got up, asked me if I'd heard of it. And it was similar to what you said with like lights just going off, like things kind of clicking. So I've been thinking about it ever since. In the simplest way, it's just a fancy term to describe the classic quote that no man is a prophet in his own home. But there's layers to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's always going to be easier to seem like an expert when you're an outsider. It's marketing at that point. It's telling a story that you control. Once you're inside an organization, you're dealing with the practical realities of logistics, limited funds, competing demands on time. Once all that happens, things look messier. You don't look like as much of a brilliant expert as you might have because you've had to run into all these challenges.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a reminder that that's going to be true for everybody. In the human performance space, I've been lucky with jobs, gotten to go to some of the coolest places where I thought they had everything figured out, and they have the same problems as everybody else does.
Yeah.
And it's just that encapsulated.
Yeah. From my perspective, I coach lacrosse in a small town and then literally get paid to go to Army bases or all over the world to then teach all the tools I'm applying at practice.
Yep.
And then the parents are blowing up about it.
Yeah.
They say I'm doing CrossFit at practice, and it's like timeout.
Yeah.
And then that just quote it encapsulated everything that I felt, and I'm like, oh man, now I'm not as frustrated.
Yeah.
Still frustrated, just not as frustrated.
And I think it's an important reminder in settings like this, because I get to visit all these teams and see them in action. And if you go in with the mentality of like finding what's wrong and calling it out, you can find it everywhere. No matter where you go, there's always problems. And I think sometimes, whether it's sport and it's like parents or coaches, or whether it's military and it's commanders, or whatever setting people are working in, it can be hard to know what to compare yourself to. Because if you just look at the public image of programs that you see, or the public image of services or brands or companies, it looks really polished. And you start to think like, am I doing a really bad job? I don't know. Because it's the same thing. Like I go back to my day job and we've got all sorts of hurdles. We don't even have a facility, right? Like we train outside.
Yeah.
And it's easy for me to get up on stage and like sound real smart. It's a whole different thing to go back to the reality of day to day and face those challenges and still provide a good product.
Yeah. So your podcasts, MOPS and MOS.
Yeah.
I wasn't familiar with those acronyms stood for. And then I had a buddy in Special Forces who recommended the podcast to me. And then we coincidentally run into each other at that summit. And I'd never heard of these acronyms before.
Yeah.
So what is MOPS and MOS stand for?
Yep.
And then why so much to then name your podcast that?
Absolutely. Why name the podcast that? Kind of an accident. I was having trouble thinking of a name for the podcast. It was a placeholder, but once you like start with something, it's pretty hard to change it. So I remember there's a whole page in my notebook of possible titles for the podcast, and we're like, we're just trying. This is probably going to go nowhere. We'll do the Mops and Mo's thing, and then a few years later, like everybody knows it by that name, so like you can't change it anymore. A few like strategic planning nerds out there will recognize it. A lot of like majors and lieutenant colonels in the Army know what MOPS and MOS are. It's measures of performance and measures of effectiveness. It's a concept borrowed from systems engineering. And a simple way to put it is measures of performance measures, are we doing things right? And measures of effectiveness measures, are we doing the right things? Because even if you execute a task perfectly, it's not necessarily the task that would have gotten you closer to the goal. It's simple for the most part in military settings. Like that's why it's used so much in military planning, global war on terror, Vietnam. We measured success initially using measures of performance. How many bad guys in body bags? But when the mission is to create stable governance, you can't bad guys in body bags your way to a stable government. There's a lot of other things you have to start measuring to test whether, no matter how well you did the task, like we're really good at causing damage. Like the military ultimately is very good at damaging things. It's hard to measure whether you're building things up and making them better.
And then what's your mission and vision for the show? Is it just talk military shop, or are you aiming for that effectiveness and change?
So we have gone through this a few times, and I think it's always fun to discuss the MOPS and MOS of MOPS and MOS. An easy measure of performance for the podcast, how many people download, how many people listen, how many people subscribe. But that is not a measure of effectiveness. Sometimes our least popular episodes are our most impactful.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we're really measuring effectiveness as much as reminding ourselves that there's a different kind of effectiveness to be on the lookout for, and that's the impact piece. And I think as far as mission and vision at this stage of where we're at, it's to take conversations that are happening behind closed doors and make them accessible to a larger audience. Because I don't think anything we discuss on the podcast is new or revolutionary. It's just something that we ran into because of a conversation at work, conversation with a friend, conversation with a peer somewhere else in the community that we think resonates and is important, but isn't getting enough widespread attention. So that's all we're really trying to do is take those conversations and bring them into a broader forum.
Yeah. And what was cool about the summit is you were on a panel and then you just took over. It was awesome to see that dynamic. And I'll give it to our friends that are running the event. They made questions anonymous. So people were not afraid to, they didn't have to stand up and speak into a microphone. And then they were open about their opinion about a lot of things. So, I mean, that brass, that confidence to stand and deliver what you view is right direction and action to take for the Army. Like, where did that start? Where did you make your first stand?
Sure. First, I'll say Summit was really well run. You were there. You saw it. I think it was a really successful event. Got leaders at different echelons engaged in the conversation. They did say before we went up to the panel, like they would filter out the real political tense questions. I specifically asked, how about we don't do that? Like, how about we address these questions? Like, that's the point. And where'd the brass come from? Hard to say. I've been lucky to have really understanding leadership throughout my career. It's come up a couple times that like certain jobs are really hard to explain what your job is. And I've been in those jobs for a long time. And I consider my job in most of the settings I've been in, people who are being more charitable have described me as the voice of reason in certain settings. I would say I'm just the guy who's willing to raise his hand and say, is what we're doing dumb? Like, we're halfway down this road. I don't know if it's going where we think it's going. Is it dumb? And like pause and have those conversations. And it does get a little easier to do that kind of stuff in the military when you take off the uniform and put on this outfit. Just being a civilian, you get to say things that are a little different. I used to have really, really strict boundaries. I would tell people there are 3 different versions of me. There's the DoD civilian version of me. There's the service member reservist version of me. And then there's the outside of those capacities, like the Mops and Mo's or personal me.
Mm-hmm.
And I've gradually started to realize that you can't really separate your identities. You're always the same person. So at the beginning of that presentation I gave, I did identify that there's 3 of me. I work in different capacities. When I get the chance to speak not on behalf of those first 2 capacities, that's when I get a little more direct.
Yeah. There you go. And where did leadership start for you? Were you an athlete growing up?
Not by choice. Not terribly athletic naturally. My parents did require that I do a sport. That was just part of what they expected of me. Cross country had no cuts in my high school. As long as you could run 3 miles in 30 minutes, you could be on the team. So there was like 100 kids on a cross country team.
Okay.
There were a lot of people on the team. Wasn't a standout athlete by any means, but I showed up and ran cross country. I think I went to West Point, obviously a large focus on leadership there. Served as a junior officer on active duty in the Army, a lot of that.
What year did you graduate at West Point?
13.
13. Okay.
But I think it's interesting that you ask where did leadership start for you and then went straight to athlete, because I think I learned more about leadership being like captain of the rock climbing club than I did from like actual leadership classes.
Mm-hmm.
Like getting people to like work towards a shared goal who don't have to work towards that shared goal taught me a lot more about leadership than when you have like UCMJ authority over somebody and they just have to do it. So yeah, it like there is clearly a sport leadership thing going on there. And there's a reason every cadet at West Point has to participate in some kind of sports.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's an understanding culturally that matters for developing leaders.
Yeah. A couple buddies, 09 graduates, and one unfortunately was killed in duty, Dimitri Del Castillo.
Yeah. I didn't know Del. I know a lot of people who knew Del, and his wife is still pretty involved. Yeah.
I'm getting goosebumps. Yeah. So went to high school with him. He was 1 year younger. And then Colin Mooney, same class. He was football.
Yeah.
And so I was root for West Point, and Mooney's the man. He went to the NFL, so served 2 years, went to the NFL, and now he's a freaking doctor in Killeen.
Yeah.
So he sets his mind at something like the West Point way. So it's cool to always watch his growth and success.
Yeah.
From the sidelines.
Timeout. Coach, have you ever felt like your athlete shut down, tune out, or just too cool for coaching? You want them to listen. You shake them. You know this attitude and approach that they're taking with their training or their practice in front of you is not going to lead to success on the field or off the field later in life, and you have to change it. Athletes today are operating on a different internal system, and we need to course correct on how our approach is going to land with them. And that's why I wrote the new course, Why They Won't Listen, Coaching Today's Athletes. If you want to learn more, head to listen.captainsandcoaches.com for this online course. If you want the first lesson free, see how I break down and combine whiteboard lecture and practical demos, movement-based lessons, so that you can bring them to your practice and your training environments. Again, head to listen.captainsandcoaches.com to learn more and get that free lesson. And now, back to the show. Ready, and break.
And continuing in that, I first took an education trip opportunity to Bragg in 2017, pre-ACFT.
Yep.
And so our mind is like, as a strength and conditioning coach, is reverse engineering a training program from a goal. Goal at the time was that former fitness test. I forget what it's called.
A PFT, push-up, sit-up, 2 mile run.
Yeah. And so we're like, nah. So then we started treating them like athletes and performing, and had a soldier coach development pipeline at Bragg, and it was awesome. And then the ACFT happened.
Significant emotional event.
For me, because it blew up our whole opportunity where we were coaching soldier coaches. and then it had to be a uniform way across the board. They had the same mindset because they were reverse engineering now a test so that people would train for the test. The test was actual training. And you've seen different evolutions of that. Now I'm on the outside looking in, and I have a sense of humor about it. And the test has changed multiple times since that 2018, 2017 timeframe.
Yep.
I've read some articles, especially Leg Tech Nation on your website.
Oh, yeah.
And I know some Marines, and that's my joke with them. I'm like, all the Army needs to do is just put in your pull-up test, because they just got to do 14 in a set amount of time. I can't recall. Like, okay, that's the max score is 14. I don't want to take away, but did the goal match the intent that they were aiming to accomplish?
In a very literal sense, no. The way the test has been implemented does not match what it was designed to do. And that's because you have this theoretical construct. At a place like this, you have a bunch of exercise physiologists, sports scientists, things like that. And the military employs people like that to do some really cool work. And then they create a recommendation, and then that recommendation has to deal with the political realities of recruiting and retention and the complexities of implementing something and changing a culture. And what was created initially is not what's been implemented today. I think it's still a step in the right direction. We've introduced incentives to train in different ways. I think we had an opportunity to set a high bar and show people how to reach that high bar, and we didn't quite seize that opportunity the way we could have. That's where the whole concept of Leg Tuck Nation comes from. I don't think the leg tuck is that special. It's kind of a weird exercise. Pull-ups would be simpler. But essentially the leg tuck, in my eyes, became a martyr. Like, it became powerful after we killed it, because it's a symbol of an unwillingness to set a high bar and commit to it and help people reach it. Instead, the Army, an organization that should be all about that, decided to admit defeat to an exercise. And it's more complicated than that. That sounds pretty extreme. But I think I'll go back to Chris Frankel's presentation from a year or two ago at Tactical, where he talked about the different purposes of assessments. He had nice analogies: camera, map, crystal ball, and engine. A camera assessment, we need to make sure it has construct validity. Is it accurately assessing the component of fitness that it says it's assessing? A map assessment should help us chart a path forward. It should be useful for designing programming based on it. A crystal ball assessment should predict the future: injury risk, health outcomes, performance on the field, whatever it is. And one we think about, don't always quantify very well, is the engine assessment. And they all play multiple roles at the end of the day. But the engine role of an assessment is that it should motivate behaviors that we want participants to adhere to, right? Somebody mentioned it recently. The previous Sergeant Major of the Army said somewhere publicly that he didn't start deadlifting until he was in his 40s, because that's when it was added to the ACFT. We shouldn't train for the test. Like, our doctrine says, don't train for the test. But something as simple as, I didn't deadlift, we put deadlift in the test, and now I deadlift, tells you that people train for the test to some degree. No matter how much we tell them not to, the test incentivizes certain types of training, and that's the engine version of an assessment. Yeah. I love that framework for thinking about what, because MOPS and MOs, right? What do we want the test to do? Part of what we want it to do is change the culture.
Yeah. And as a leader, I mean, what's your first take for culture? You get the opportunity to educate, and then there's a lot of young soldiers in the room where you were presenting. What's your vision for the culture of the Army that you're so passionate about?
I think it's moving towards the ideal that we write in doctrine, because doctrine's not enforceable. It's essentially just a collection of ideas that we think would make things better. But I think in that particular context at Fort Bliss, where I was talking to that room, the goal was to get them to trust and utilize the human performance professionals they have in their organizations. Because it's easy to see what's on social media, and like, that's way sexier. Like, that guy has 250,000 followers. He must know what he's doing. look how good it looks, look how jacked he is, look how fast he is. We should do what that guy says. But that guy's marketing. That guy's doing sales. He's not doing real life. The people you have with you in your organization, it's not as sexy, it's not as polished because they're dealing with real life. But they know your culture, they know your limitations, they know your current status, they know what equipment you have, they know what the weather is like, they know what your leaders will approve, they know what's on the calendar next month. Like, that was the goal with that conversation.
You feel it's necessary to be a combat veteran or ex-military to be in those training positions?
I certainly don't think it's necessary. I think it provides certain advantages of being able to navigate the culture and understand what's going on. You know what a first sergeant is, and you know what a captain is, all that kind of stuff. But it comes with some disadvantages of you're used to the way it's always been done, and that might affect you, and you might not be as open to changes that other people might be. We've found a lot through the podcast that some of the most valuable, relevant, insightful perspectives that have changed our approaches have come from people who not only aren't involved in the military, but aren't even really human performance professionals, people that have a psychology background or people who have an economics background, or like there are other advantages that come from other unique backgrounds as well.
Team, this episode of Mops and Mo's is brought to you by Train Heroic. Train Heroic is a reliable, well-designed platform for programming, tracking, and communicating with athletes. If you've been with us for any length of time, you will know that Train Heroic is the platform that we use to power our own training, long and strong, which you can find at our website, mopsandmos.com. If you're looking for a solid platform to support your own coaching, whether it's your full-time role or a side hustle, Train Heroic is definitely worth checking out. You can use the link in any of our show notes, you can find it in our newsletter, or you can head to our website, mopsandmos.com/training to get your first week for free.
Yeah, I imagine you've met a lot of dudes in H2F that did not have that military background.
Absolutely.
So what guidance and advice would you give them to help relate, to build the bridge, to really accelerate the buy-in? Because they're getting the job because they mean well and they know their stuff. So how do you connect to that person?
Don't assume that what you think you've been hired for is what you were actually expected to do once you arrive. There's layers to why I say that. One is, in this space, I don't think we've done the best job yet with writing job descriptions. I think a lot of people think they've been hired to either do what they did in a collegiate athletics setting to soldiers, or to make soldiers into powerlifters, or to make soldiers into whatever ideal of an athlete they think it is. I think step one, especially if you haven't had any previous exposure to the military, you got to learn the culture. Don't expect the military to change for you. You're going to have to change for the military, right? Like the program has a lot of contractors. The program has a lot of civilians. Neither of those are going to war when the balloon goes up. So the military is going to have to still be able to do its thing with or without you. You provide an extra service, and it's awesome, and I love it. That's why I do this work. But don't expect them to just overnight flip a switch on the culture and do it the way you think it needs to be done. You got to learn what you're fitting into as well.
Yeah. And then same respect, because a big part of that position is being a 360-degree leader. You got to lead down to your guys you're training, work with your team on the same level, but then start leading up. And a sport coach and a general, those are two different people.
And I'll use this opportunity to get on a soapbox real quick. I hear the term buy-in all the time. Buy-in isn't happening unless money is changing hands, right? Buy-in means payment, right? So people constantly look for buy-in from the soldiers. Soldiers are not the ones who are putting money into the program. You do need to look for buy-in from the people who write the checks that make the program happen. Those are your senior civilians, your generals, your members of Congress, things like that. So you got to understand what they want and prove that you're providing that. That's where buy-in comes from, because they write the checks. You do want the soldiers to value the program and use it and get excited about it, but that's different than buy-in. A lot of them don't intrinsically value the things you want them to care about. That's reality. And they're not going to. Understanding behavior change, understanding what does get them motivated, understanding the value you can add for them is important. That's different than buy-in, though. I think I struggled with that early on in this. You'd walk into a private training facility just outside a military base, and everybody's excited and everybody's into it, and they're trying really hard and they have personal relationships with the coaches, and it's amazing. And you go into units on that base with just as qualified coaches, and that energy isn't always there.
Mm-hmm.
There's a difference. The people off base are literally bought in. They paid their personal money to train as part of that program. That's what buy-in is. We are never going to have that in a tactical setting. Right? If soldiers had to pay to use your program, a lot of them wouldn't be there. That's just reality. So you have to take a different approach.
Yeah. And I've heard you share that the military prioritizes being warriors over the process of becoming warriors.
Oh,
and I'd love to highlight that because there's parallels to
100%.
athletics as well.
Yeah. I remember when I was first making my way into the Army. High school, Alex saw a really cool flyer for West Point. It had helicopters and obstacle courses and all this cool stuff. I'm like, I'll give it a shot. And I was pretty sure I would not make it through basic training. Got to basic training, or at least the version of it that I went to. Turned out to not be that hard, especially if you're in high school cross country. You'll be fine. Even if you suck at high school cross country like me, you're ahead of a lot of people. So then that ends, and it's time to be a cadet at West Point. And I was like, all right, this is where they're going to find out I'm a fraud. I'm not going to make it. Got there. Turns out, normal people can hang. Let's do it. Graduated from West Point, first assignment, infantry battalion. I was like, this is where they're going to find out that I'm a joke who's like never lived up to the real expectations. And all of this was informed by like commercials and movies and documentaries about what the Army is. I get to an infantry battalion, still regular dudes, like regular people that I can compete with and I can perform well against if I work hard. And that comes back to the Nazareth Syndrome stuff. The marketing, the advertising always looks better than the real thing. And it's easy to cling to the warrior identity because it's sexy. Like you can put it on a tattoo, you can put it on a poster, you can put it on a commercial. That's awesome. Let's be warriors. Let's do the things warriors do. I saw this awesome guy do this awesome workout on a YouTube video. We're going to do that. The less sexy part is how many years of consistency it takes to be able to do that safely at a high level, effectively. Like it's just not sexy to put in all the work. It's sexy to see the results, and people want it much faster. Like, you don't need to train the way the athlete you want to be trains now. You need to train the way the athlete you want to be trained when they were at the level you are currently at. And that might have been when they were 7, because they've been training consistently since then and like haven't missed a week at all. And people forget that. We talk a lot lately about like biometrics and wearable technology and all the things it offers. In the program I work in, the utility of wearable devices that I have found most valuable is I can look at a calendar and see how many days in the month they did anything meaningful that was training oriented. Most valuable metric right there. Are you participating? Are you trying? Are you consistent about it? Because the program doesn't matter if you're not doing anything more than like once or twice a week.
Yeah, that makes great sense. And then, man, dudes always get up for game day. And then they're like, practice is a chore, all this.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, game day would be a hell of a lot more fun.
Yeah.
The better you
100%.
are. Just how do I reach these kids?
And I remember struggling with it myself because I did 8 years active duty. After my first assignment, I still had not deployed. So when I went to career course, I asked to go to the unit that was next up to deploy. Got that assignment, they canceled the deployment. And I struggled a lot. And this is like part of my journey of like, do I stay in the Army until I get to do the thing? Or do I get out and do what I want to do? It was tough. And I still don't have a great answer to it. I'm still in the reserve. So I have a halfway solution of kind of being in the Army, kind of not. Keep that door open. But I had a really good conversation with a mentor. He was my first battalion commander. He's a general now. And he reminded me that the Army doesn't pay you to go to war. The Army pays you to be ready to go to war. Whether it happens, barely relevant. The Army pays you to be ready for it. And that's the unsexy day-to-day training meetings, going to the field, working out consistently, whatever it is. It's not sexy. There's never going to be a documentary that everybody gets hyped for and goes to watch in theaters about being in garrison for a couple of years and just training and then never going to combat.
Yeah.
But that's where it happened. Like, that's the thing that matters, is the training you did before you go do the thing, whether or not you get asked to do the thing.
Yeah. Is that communicated? Is the marketing still, hey, let's be awesome, get them in? And then is there a moment where it's like, gotcha?
I mean, if you look at the way soldiers talk about recruiters, I think there is a mismatch between the reality and the sales. I think everybody, that's natural. That happens everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, when you're getting recruited for anything, they're going to paint a nicer picture than the reality is when you get there.
In sports, you are, oh, you're amazing, you're going to start right away. No, you're not.
No. Yeah, exactly. So I think that's inevitable that there's going to be a little bit of that mismatch. It took me 6+ years of active duty before that even started to sink in. And I still, there's still a part of me that wonders if I'm any good at doing intel, because I've never done it against a real enemy on a real battlefield. I just haven't. And so that advertising and that messaging affects people, and just like the sexiness is what gets people motivated. We can't ignore that. But I think it is worth having conversations, especially today, where we're not sending nearly as many people into active combat zones, but there are very serious geopolitical threats on the horizon that people need to be ready for and units need to be ready for. It is hard to keep people motivated in those transitional periods. We see it every time. We don't really get ready for the war until the war has already started.
Yeah.
And the same kind of thing applies to what you said about practice and game day. Like, people have an easier time showing up for game day, for deployment, for combat, than they do for practice. And trying to help people understand that consistency in practice, consistency in training is what makes people able to perform.
Yeah.
When the sexy thing happens.
Yeah, I love the Navy SEAL moniker that nobody rises to the occasion. You fall at the level of your training. So then I utilize conditioning as more of a behavior shaper than like VO2 max and everything that Frankel talks about. I'm going to give him a hard time. He's a great guy. So, yeah. And then that's what I'm shaping, because now that's the inevitable stress and challenge they'll face in the real world, is getting emotional, getting fatigued, being tired, and making responsible decisions under duress.
Yeah. I think this is something Drew and I have been talking about exploring on the podcast soon. We haven't quite figured out the right way to do it, but for things that we need to measure the effectiveness of, I'm not quite sure that the military has even agreed on the intended purpose of physical training, right? A lot of strength and conditioning coaches will assume that the intended purpose of physical training is to improve measures like strength, like muscular endurance, like aerobic capacity, like anaerobic, whatever, all these easy to quantify physical attributes. And that's certainly part of it, but I don't think that's the whole thing. And there are a lot of leaders out there. You'll hear all the time in the Army, like, PT is not supposed to make you better. It's just supposed to maintain. I disagree with that. I think if you're spending 5-7+ hours a week on it, you should probably make you better, because that's a lot of training. But they have other ideas in their head of what it's supposed to achieve. Bonding within the team, giving junior leaders the opportunity to plan, facing adversity on a regular basis so you're used to it. Like, in some places, it's just a way to do hard things out in the environment. A couple weeks ago, I was out at Fort Wainwright up in Alaska.
Cool.
And in that place, going out and doing PT when it's 0, -10, -20, -60 sometimes, it's not necessarily about getting fitter. You might not. Sometimes it's about doing hard physical things in the conditions you're going to have to do hard physical military things in, and it's just a way to practice it in a little bit more controlled environment. So I don't know if we've defined our goal well enough to measure the effectiveness of the thing, and that's hard to do.
Yeah. What I can comically observe from the exterior is how the military grabs onto certain words that are sticky.
Oh, yeah.
So resilience is a big one. Readiness. In your humble opinion, like, what words do you feel are overused, misused, and what do you feel is like a one-word, more appropriate manner that someone can embody to then effectively lead through?
I don't think I'm going to be able to answer the second part of that question of, like, what's a one-word thing that people should focus on. If I had an answer to that,
I'll
be
Next
doing great
conversation,
things.
I'll give you time.
It's homework. Next time we chat, I'll have figured out the one word that people need to focus on to solve this whole problem. Shout out Nate Palin. We work together in our day jobs. His whole presentation was on the overuse of those words: readiness, resilience, lethality.
Lethality. That's another one.
Lethality is the latest one. And I think the tough part of lethality is that it's easy to understand lethality for certain jobs in the military. And those are the jobs where human performance programs started, special operators, most specifically, but also infantrymen and things like that. Lethality becomes more and more conceptual or indirect the farther you get from those roles. And I think people outside the military might not realize how small a percentage of the total military is in combat roles.
Yeah. And
then even then, what a small percentage of the people in those combat roles ever actually like fire their weapon at an enemy in direct combat. And it gets more and more true the more you zoom out.
Time out. Text here at Train Heroic headquarters, meeting with the team to talk about the coaching experience that I'm able to provide for my athletes. So if you're a coach and want to put your program out there on an app that athletes actually enjoy using, Train Heroics for you. I've been using it since 2014, delivering literally over tens of thousands of workouts to athletes. And the Train Heroic allows me to provide the unique coaching experience that I want to. Uploading video, providing coaching feedback, directions, and building a community. That's why I love Train Heroic. And if you want to take your athletes where they can't take themselves, that they want to go, head to trainheroic.com/captains and check out how you can deliver programming to them. And now back to the show. Ready, and ready.
Right. My day job today is with the Space Force. These guys provide an incredible degree of lethality through the work they do. That work happens at a computer in a windowless room, right? It's not the same. It's not kicking down doors. It's not pulling triggers. There is a baseline level of that's required if you put on the uniform, because you may deploy into a hostile area where you have to defend yourself. You have to maneuver. You have to do those things. But their primary task is entirely technical. It makes things possible for the guys who kick in doors and pull triggers that would not otherwise be possible without a really long tail of technical and logistics and just all these other things that make lethality happen at the pointy end of the spear. But how do you articulate lethality to a guy whose job happens on a computer? That's tough. It's tough to measure. It's tough to articulate. It's tough to make it motivational. And why should that guy have to be physically fit if he can't picture a situation where physicality is going to make or break his ability to do the thing he does for the mission? It's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. I'm just thinking how would an aim to do that? And there's roles on teams. A practice player, practice squad, you got a particular role. Freshman, you got a particular role. JV, varsity, all these different things. But as long as expectations are clear, they can prepare for a specific role. But then that's why I love high school sports. Every year, you're graduating into a new role.
Yeah. I think the roles thing is fun. I saw a great product. Shout out Consortium for Health and Military Performance. They're like a research body at the DoD level that looks at military human performance. And I remember a presentation I got from some members of their team years ago where you start adding layers of complexity. So I think the first example they used was like a crew team. Like, how complicated is this task? How hard is it to understand the demands? There is some complexity, but it's pretty straightforward. You can measure the duration of the event. You can look at the muscles activated during it, all these things. There's still a team dynamic element and a coordination element that make it a little complicated, but it's fairly straightforward. Then switch to like a football team. Bunch of different positions, do different things, duration of the activity, somewhat predictable, but could vary. You could have a play that lasts 2 seconds. You could have a play that lasts 30 seconds or more. You like a lot more complexity now. It's not just physical output. Now you have to contend with an opponent who might do unpredictable things. It's getting more complicated. And then you switch to a picture of a platoon maneuvering, right? That's a degree of complexity way beyond what we see on athletic fields.
Yeah.
Right? We don't know the environment they'll operate in. It could the moments that matter could last seconds. They could last days.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody on the platoon has a different job, has a different level of experience, has a different level of fitness. Their physical demands are not the same. They might train together, but their needs are different. In sport, you can mostly assume a similar archetype.
Yeah.
Like if you have a cross-country team, it's a certain archetype genetically. If you have a football team, it's a certain archetype genetically. None of that is predictable in a military setting. That's all gone. The most important thing might be physical or it might be technical. You got to do physical things and also communicate with a pilot in an aircraft on a radio. Like it's just a degree of complexity that I think when you initially get taught like the foundations of sports science or exercise science, they assume you can draw out like an energy systems distribution of what somebody does or a strength requirements distribution of what somebody does. And that's just not going to fly in almost any military setting. It's just that much more complicated.
Yeah. Wild. Those are fun problems to solve for a lot of people, I believe.
And if I've learned anything, doing it for a few years, doing the podcast for a few years, having conversations about these things, it's that it is not at the end of the day answering those questions about the physical capacities or how to train them that matter. It's figuring out culture that matters.
Yeah. Now we're talking.
And that is the same between sport and the military.
Now we're talking. All right. Some fun things to close out on. Favorite military, Army-based war movie?
This is going to not really connect with the whole physical fitness thing. And it's not my favorite for a fun reason. It's my favorite because it was impactful. The Outpost.
I don't know that one.
It's based on Cop Keating. It's based on a book written about it. Multiple medals of honor won in this battle. Some of the guys who fought in the battle play themselves in the movie. I care about it because the story begins with intel, which is what I did when I was active duty. If you're like me, you will cry when you watch it.
Who's
pretty real.
What stars are in it? That
honestly, I think the stars that are in it are not actors. I don't even remember who the actors are that are in it. The stars that are in it are the soldiers that play themselves.
Yeah.
My personal connection to it is that if you watch the movie, Doc Cordova has been awarded for valor for his actions in it. He was the physician assistant on my knee surgery, which was like a pretty hard thing to like.
Yeah.
Like you're telling me what to do at like post-op for my knee, but also you're a war hero. Like this is complicated. So that was why I ended up reading the book after I got to know who he was. It's why I watched the movie because I read the book. Yeah, highly recommend.
I will check that out.
Yeah.
Man.
The credits song, I tear up a little bit whenever I hear it, even if I'm not watching the movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Man, I'm in.
Yeah.
I was expecting Fury, but
sorry. Fury's a good one too. It influenced my haircut as a lieutenant.
Well, there we go. Dude, tell people where to follow the podcast, follow your writing. So you still write amazing blogs, articles, and post them out.
We write some blogs. It's a lot of the recent blogs that are really good are written by people who just send them to us.
Okay.
So people, if they have a good idea they want to get out there, that's a great opportunity to do it. We accept guest submissions for the blog. But where to find us, everything is Mops and Moes, MOPSNMOES. You'll find us on every podcast platform, all the normal ones. You'll find us on the website. Podcasts with show notes are all on the website. You'll find us on Instagram. I will add a caveat for the sake of my own mental health. I do not really monitor the Instagram DMs that closely anymore. For the first few years, I looked at every single one. That was not a good way to live. Once it gets too big, it's a problem, and people get too much access to you. So I will require people who want to reach out to take at least 10 seconds worth of extra effort before reaching out. Alex@mopsandmoes.com is my email, or there's a contact form on the website.
Boom. Yeah, man. Well, appreciate you.
Yeah, no, appreciate
you.
We
were running similar circles for a long time, so then glad we had got the opportunity to connect, and looking forward to more, man. So
and appreciate the training session you led at the summit. It was some pretty cool stuff. I definitely tweaked a little bit of the things I was doing after that.
Yeah, just introducing different planes and movements and preparation, and then just assessment. If you could feel it, I'm weak here.
And if you figure out some of the stuff you were talking about in a really practical way, it's a really good framework for solving one of the classic military physical training problems, which is how do you train people of wildly diverse fitness levels and backgrounds together in the same training session and have everybody get an appropriate stimulus.
Yeah. we're all following the same program, but then finding different ways. That was the aim. Cool. Well, we got to get back to a conference.
Let's do it.
Appreciate you, man. And thank you for tuning in. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Tex. Scene.
Fireside Chats. Reading the podcast, dude.
Hey, Alex, let's cover our ass real quick.
Oh, great idea, Drew. All right, guys. The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.
Thanks for tuning into this week's episode. Before you go, please rate and review the pod on the listening platform of your choice. You can also visit us on our website at www.mopsinmos.com. That's mops, the letter N, mos.com. You can check out the library of podcast episodes, our latest blog entries, any helpful resources, and also sign up for our newsletter.
Drew nailed it. Just to underline a couple of things, the podcast entries have in-depth show notes on the website. So if you missed anything or you want to read any of the research we talk about, it is all there. You can, at the bottom of the website, sign up with your email and receive future updates from us. The blog posts go a little bit more in depth in kind of written form on a couple of topics we get questions about all the time. But most importantly, I just want to ask all you guys, our best way the word gets out is absolutely word of mouth. So tell your friends, tell the people you work with, anybody you think would find it useful. Thanks for spreading the word.
If you have any questions or comments, feel free to shoot us an email at either Drew or Alex at mopsinmos.com.
Or there's a contact form on the website.
Thank you.